Today, we're jumping right into one of the biggest, most high-stakes races in all of crypto, the battle to scale Ethereum. This is a flat-out showdown between competing technologies and billion-dollar ecosystems, all fighting to become the go-to Layer 2 solution. And honestly, the outcome is going to shape the future of the decentralized web as we know it.
So here's how we're going to break it down. First, we'll look at why this race even needs to happen. Then, we'll check out the early leaders, Arbitrum and Optimism, before we meet the new challengers bringing some revolutionary ZK tech to the fight. We'll also dive into a massive engine upgrade that's changing the whole game, see how the racetrack itself is evolving, and finally, ask that big question: who's really winning this thing?
Okay, so before we even get to the racers, we have to talk about the track. Why did this whole category of technology even have to be invented? What's the core problem we're trying to solve here?
Well, the main issue is pretty simple. Ethereum is just a victim of its own success. It's the world's #1 smart contract platform, which means its digital real estate gets really, really crowded. And when demand skyrockets, the whole network gets clogged up. Transactions slow to a crawl, and those gas fees, the cost to get anything done, can go through the roof. Turning a simple $5 swap into a $50 transaction. For most people, that's just a complete deal breaker.
And that's exactly where Layer 2s come into the picture. The best way to think about it is this. Imagine Ethereum is a super busy city highway that's always in gridlock. A Layer 2 is like a brand new express lane built right on top of it. It takes thousands of cars or transactions, bundles them all up, processes them super fast and super cheap in its own lane, and then just posts a single tiny summary back to the main Ethereum highway. You get all the speed and low cost, but you still inherit that world-class security from the main chain.
Now, there are two competing engine designs in this race. On one side, you have optimistic rollups. They work on an innocent until proven guilty model. They just assume all transactions are valid to be super efficient. But there's a catch. Because of that assumption, there's a challenge period, sometimes a week long, where you have to wait to withdraw your funds back to Ethereum. On the other side, you have ZK rollups. These are more of a proven correct from the start kind of deal. They use some seriously advanced math, these things called validity proofs, to guarantee every single transaction is correct. This means faster finality, but all that cryptographic magic is a lot more computationally expensive.
So in the first lap of this L2 race, two of those optimistic rollups, Arbitrum and Optimism, just shot way out in front of the pack. They pretty quickly established themselves as the two giants of the space.
And the undisputed leader, at least when it comes to sheer financial gravity, is Arbitrum. It's got a mind-boggling $19 billion in total value secured, or TVS. Now, according to L2 Beats, this isn't just DeFi money. This number includes everything: canonically bridged assets, externally bridged assets, and natively minted ones. So it gives us a really solid picture of the network's total economic power.
This chart really lays it all out, doesn't it? You can see Arbitrum with that commanding lead, but look at Base. It's built on Optimism's tech stack and has the full backing of Coinbase. It just rocketed into second place with $15 billion, which just goes to show you the power of having a massive retail user base. And of course, Optimism itself is holding a very strong third position with $8 billion.
But here's the crucial thing to understand. These two aren't just clones of each other. They're playing totally different games. Arbitrum's whole strategy is to be the ultimate liquidity black hole for DeFi. All the big protocols build there because that's where the money is. It's where you can do high-frequency trading and build complex derivatives. Optimism, on the other hand, is playing the long game. It's all about funding public goods and open sourcing its tech, the OP stack, to build what they call a superchain, a whole network of chains that can all work together seamlessly.
Okay, but while the optimistic rollups were busy building out their lead, a whole new class of racer was in the garage, tuning a much more advanced engine, an engine powered by that zero-knowledge cryptography we talked about.
So these are the big ZK challengers. You've got ZK Sync, Era, which is all about making it super easy for existing Ethereum projects to just copy-paste their code over. Then you have StarkNet, which is taking a more radical approach. It has its own custom language, Cairo, and these incredibly powerful Stark proofs designed for massive scale. Think huge on-chain games and complex financial apps. And then there's Polygon's ZK EVM, which is on a quest for what you might call the Holy Grail, being almost identical to Ethereum itself, making the developer experience absolutely seamless.
Now, just when it seemed like the race was settling into these two camps, optimistic versus ZK, Arbitrum decides to unveil a secret weapon, a massive engine upgrade that could completely change the performance game.
So to get this upgrade, you first have to understand the EVM, the Ethereum Virtual Machine. It's basically the brain of Ethereum.
And it's incredibly secure, super reliable, but it was never, ever built for speed. Imagine trying to do basic math on a calculator that was designed for cracking military-grade codes. Every simple calculation is clunky and inefficient. That's kind of like the EVM, and it creates a hard ceiling on performance.
And that's where Arbitrum Stylus comes in. It is such a brilliant move. They basically created a second parallel processing engine using WebAssembly or WASM. So now developers can write smart contracts in super fast languages like Rust and C++, which run way more efficiently, but they can still interact perfectly with all the existing contracts on the EVM. It's literally like they bolted a jet engine onto their already fast race car.
And the performance leap here is just staggering. For really heavy computational tasks, we're talking about contracts running in this WASM environment that can be 10 to 100 times faster than on the EVM. This isn't just a small improvement, it's a completely different league of performance.
So, why does this matter? What's the big deal? Well, that kind of raw power unlocks a whole new universe of applications that were basically impossible on-chain before. We're talking about things like complex data verification for oracles, or even fully on-chain physics engines for video games, stuff that was pure science fiction just a couple of years ago.
And all this new engine power totally changes the race itself. It's not just about having the single fastest car anymore. Now the real race is about building the entire highway system and convincing major brands and companies to build their cities right alongside it. And this table just lays out the long-term vision of each of these players perfectly. You've got Arbitrum's Orbit, which lets projects launch their own custom Layer 3s like the gaming chain XAI. You have Optimism's Superchain vision, with Coinbase's Base as its flagship partner. And then you've got Polygon, which has been crushing it on the business side, bringing in absolute giants like Starbucks, Disney, and Nike into its Supernets ecosystem.
So after all this competition, right? Optimistic versus ZK, different strategies, massive tech upgrades, who is actually winning this thing? Well, the answer might be a little more interesting and a lot more collaborative than you'd expect. You see, the biggest twist in the race actually came from Ethereum itself. There was a huge upgrade called Proto-Dank sharding. Now, the key thing here is that it introduced a whole new way for L2s to post data, using these things called data blobs. Basically, Ethereum created a dedicated, super cheap data lane on its main highway just for Layer 2s.
And the impact was immediate. It was dramatic. Transaction fees for everyday users on pretty much every single Layer 2 just plummeted. We're talking about a 90% drop overnight. A swap that used to cost $1 now costs 10 cents. It was the ultimate a rising tide lifts all boats moment. The main racetrack got a massive upgrade that made every single car in the race faster and way cheaper to run.
Which brings us to the real finish line here. The goal was never for one Layer 2 to completely dominate all the others. Instead, what we're seeing is the birth of a really vibrant multi-chain future. If you're a project that needs deep DeFi liquidity, you're going to choose Arbitrum. If you're an app that needs to reach millions of retail users, you're going to launch on Base. If you're a team focused on building public goods, you'll probably build on Optimism. And if you need to do some crazy intense computation, you might go with Starknet. And so that's the big question I'll leave you with. As all these technologies get better and their ecosystems get bigger, are we headed for a future where one Layer 2 just becomes so dominant that it pulls everything into its orbit? Or are we really witnessing the birth of something more like a universe of interconnected, specialized chains where everyone can be a winner in their own niche? The race is definitely far from over.